Another thing I wanted to take a look at today that I think is actually very interesting is the World Championship 2026 rules have been announced. First of all, I don't know if this is a new image or if it's something they've posted before, but I think it's a pretty cool artwork for the Yu-Gi-Oh 2026 World Championships. Of course, it's happening in Japan this year. And even though I'm not personally taking part in it, we are obviously going to be here and watch it. And I'm very interested to see, because they've just posted the rule sets for all of the categories over on their website for the World Championship 2026. As far as the trading card game goes, I have looked over this a little bit, and I couldn't spot any differences from previous years. But I'm gonna go over it just quickly for the people who don't know how it's worked in previous years or how it works in general, because they also did post the specific ban list for the World Championship over here as well that we can take a look at. So the trading card game, or the TCG/OCG World Championship, is the only tournament where basically OCG and TCG are combined every year. So it of course begs the question, since both formats operate on different card pools and different ban lists, how do you combine those two into one tournament? And this is a question I get asked a lot, because that's why I'm going over it again, even though a lot of people probably already know how it happens, but it's still something that people often ask about. Essentially, the way it worked in the past, and also the way it works this year, is they combine the two formats by essentially taking the, what's the word for it, the lowest common denominator of every card. So if a card is limited in the TCG but it is banned in the OCG, it is banned at Worlds. If a card is not released yet in the TCG but the OCG already has it, it is still not allowed for play, because one of the regions doesn't have access to the card, so it's not legal in that region. Therefore, it's also not legal at Worlds. If a card is at 3 for the OCG, but the TCG has it limited, it's going to be limited at Worlds. And the same thing goes for TCG exclusive archetypes, which is why the ban list for the World Championship has a lot more cards on it than usual, because it basically starts out with, here, all of the TCG exclusives that the OCG doesn't have yet, right? We've got Yugioh, the Dawn's Light, Loose, the Dusk's Dark, Mutiny in the Sky. Those are cards that were originally released as TCG exclusives, and the OCG has not imported them yet. Miracle Raven, Ashlan U1000, Readying of Rights, so on and so forth. The entire RB archetype, not that anyone would have probably played that at Worlds this year, but just, you know, it's not allowed. I'm just scanning over this to see if there's anything that's actually super relevant and is going to change how the World Championship is going to play out. Mercurium, the Living Quicksilver, is a pretty good card that could potentially have seen play depending on the decks. Stormbane Dragon the Storbin is a good card. Flux Oxenfield is a good card that is not allowed this year at the World Championship. The entirety of the Call of the Haunted archetype that probably wouldn't have seen play. GMX, which probably wouldn't have seen much play anyways. We've got Fata Dragna, which is a good TCG exclusive. But there's also one that is particularly strong, which is Mixuzia the Confounder. I think Mixuzia the Confounder, I mean, with Branded being definitely an option for the World Championship this year, Mixuzia would have also probably made an appearance if it was allowed. Probably the most important card out of all of these. The entirety of Angeliki is also not allowed. And then we have a couple of cards that just aren't released in all of the territories. We have the Black Luster Soldier, the Normal Monster, which was like a promo in some places. It's not allowed. Another verse Plutonia, another verse Solaria. Nothing super relevant, but that is that. And then after that is where the quote-unquote normal ban list starts, where the cards are on here because they're too powerful and not just because they're not released yet. And so we can scroll over this. I would actually, it would be really cool if they put like another column here to indicate the cards that are like why the card is here, like because it's banned in OCG or because it's banned in TCG. It would make it easier to pinpoint like the differences between the two ban lists. But you know, you can see a bunch of the barrier statues that I believe Japan or the OCG still has access to are on here because the TCG has banned them. The Noroi is on here because the TCG has banned it. Maxi is in here because the TCG has banned it. Kashira Fenrir is in here because the OCG still has it banned, which is very funny to me. Whenever I'm looking at the power level over in the OCG, sometimes I remember the fact that they banned Kashira Fenrir, which is very funny to me, but it's banned at Worlds because of this. We've got Baron the Fleur, and this is one of the biggest changes for OCG players. Baron the Fleur is banned. You know, we've got Herald of the Arclight, which is also still legal in the OCG, but it's banned at Worlds. What else is there? Baguska is banned. That is one of the few things that the OCG has over the TCG. They did eventually ban Baguska. It is still something that I am waiting for in the TCG to happen at some point. I thought it was going to happen during Ryziel format, because right now there isn't really many decks that are spamming Baguska, but should have definitely been banned during Ryziel format, and the OCG did do that, so it's on here. What else do we have? Geonator Transverser was just banned in the OCG, so that's on here. Malice gets premium treatment on this ban list because the TCG has banned Whitebinder, the OCG has banned Red Ransom. At Worlds, we get the best of both worlds. Both Red Ransom and Whitebinder are banned, so no one is bringing Malice to this year's World Championship, I can tell you that much. Also, Link Decoder, which we saw yesterday as when we watched the OCG WCQ for Japan. Link Decoder is still allowed over there, but for Worlds it's not. Alongside Splash Mage, all of that stuff is gone. Malice pretty much unplayable at this year's World Championship, which is awesome. But here's the first thing that I think is awesome. Cult by the Grave. Cult by the Grave is forbidden at this year's World Championship because the OCG has pulled the trigger on it on their latest ban list, I believe, or maybe it was 2 ban lists ago. But it's banned in the OCG. So we are not going to see any one of Cult by the Grave going first, ruining a game at the World Championships, which is going to be very, very awesome. So no Cult by the Grave at Worlds, which is a blessing for everyone going to Worlds from the TCG, that you don't have to deal with this card. Yeah, I'm trying to see any other differences. Most of this is Mystic Vok, I believe, is a special treatment, and I'm not sure why it's still on here, because I think this card is not banned in either of the formats, if I remember correctly. And I think Emergency Provisions is the same thing, which is a little bit higher up the list. This is just a thing that for some reason has always, like, not always, I don't know if it's always, but like there are a couple of cards that they have just always put on the ban list for the World Championship, like just the World Championship. And it's some of the life gain / burn cards that they just put on here, even though they are not typically banned. I think this also includes cards like Life Equalizer, Magical Explosion might be banned in some of the formats, but also Rainbow Life. Rainbow Life is not on the ban list, I'm pretty sure, in any of the formats. I think this is just a decision that they've made probably 10-15 plus years ago, because even when I went to the World Champ for TCG, the last times I went to the World Championship were 17, 18, and 19, and I still remember that this was the case back then. Which, like, back then it made some sense, because we still had the, you know, overtime rules of, like, you have more life points, you win the game. So it was like, okay, at least we don't have to deal with any shenanigans like that. But nowadays, I did check, they do follow the double loss rules at Worlds, like the same rules we have in TCG pretty much for overtime. So there is no real reason for these cards to be on here. Like, realistically, they would not see any play, I can guarantee you that. No one would play Mystic Walk at the World Championship. But they're still on here for whatever reason. I think it's just something that was decided like a long time ago, that they had a couple of cards that were specifically banned at Worlds, and they've just been following that all the way through. Doesn't really matter, you know. It's I think it is a better safe than sorry kind of thing. I mean, I guess they are just trying to maybe prevent people from building like a stall deck or something like that, which wouldn't really be a thing in modern Yu-Gi-Oh anyways. But who really cares, because no one was going to bring the card anyways, so it doesn't really hurt anyone either, so it's fine. Yeah. All right, other notable things. Roland Lockbird is limited. This is something alongside Called by the Grave, and we're going to see some others later. I've talked about this a couple times in the last weeks. I think the one thing that the OCG does have over the TCG at the moment in terms of their ban list quality is they have gone a little harder on some of these non-engine cards that have been ruining a lot of games in the TCG recently. And Droll and Lockbird is another one of those cards that is limited in the OCG, so there is only going to be one copy at the World Championships allowed, which is awesome. I mean, we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out in about a month from now, a little bit more than a month from now, if banning Called by, limiting Droll, and also semi-limiting Ash Blossom and Impulse, if that's going to improve our viewing experience or overall quality of games. We're going to find that out when we watch the World Championships. But I personally think it is going to increase the quality of games, that we have less of these powerful non-engine cards allowed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. And I actually think it's also something I've said before. I think this World's ban list is actually something that essentially, because I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh's power level overall always tends to be a little bit too high. I think combining the two ban lists, and as a result taking more cards away, results in just a better format than each of the individual ones. Like, I think this ban list, because it just has more hits on it, is probably better than the individual parts. Like, I think it's a better list than the TCG list, and I think it's a better list than the OCG list, because you're combining the more aggressive hits on endboard pieces from the TCG, like Baron the Fleur and such. You're combining those with more aggressive hits on non-engine from the OCG, like Droll, Called by, and so on and so forth. And you're also getting the maxi ban from the TCG, so you don't have to deal with it. You're basically getting the best of both worlds in this format, which I think is pretty cool. I think this looks like a really, really good ban list overall. I mean, I think that's just how it goes, and I found myself often, like, I am on the side of, I would rather have the ban list be a little bit more aggressive, and usually the ban lists that are well received by the community as well are the ones where they hit more cards, right? Like, the more aggressively they hit some of the best decks in the format and some of the most powerful cards in the format, I think it leads to a better reception of the formats that are to come. So yeah, I you know, what else do we have? We have Fiendsmith Engraver Limited. This is something that is coming from the OCG, and that's also worth mentioning. Moon of the Closed Heaven is another one of those generic extra deck cards that the OCG, I'm pretty sure, do they still have it? I think the OCG still has it. I might be wrong on that. Maybe they got rid of it recently. It is banned in the OCG? Okay, my bad. I just remembered they kept it longer than we did. They banned it eventually too. Okay. I mean, that is a pretty heavy hit on Fiendsmith then. If it's not only Moon is gone, but also Engraver is limited. And I think, if I remember correctly, Tract is also limited. Yes, Tract is also limited. So not only is it harder to bridge into Fiendsmith, but it's also harder to actually draw the engine, because Tract and Engraver are both limited. Other notable changes: Kashtira Unicorn limited. I don't think we have that in the TCG. Rotary is limited. And this is something that, you know, basically by, I don't know if this is confirmation actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but the fact that this is already out here, the fact that they already announced the World Championship ban list, I'm pretty sure this means we don't get a TCG ban list until Worlds, right? Because otherwise, this would not be, it wouldn't be possible to announce the Worlds ban list if the TCG ban list is changing like soon. They've given us one before. Last year, if I remember correctly, they published it before Worlds, but it was in effect after Worlds, I think. And I feel like that is something they could do again. Yes, they could do it again. What I mean is, like, they're not gonna post one like next week that is in effect in like 2 weeks, is what this confirms, right? Pretty much. Which is something that, I mean, no one was expecting that to happen anyways. I'm just putting it out there that is probably not gonna happen, because they've already did that, right? Yeah, Lubellion is at 1. What? I mean, look, OCG, man, They've looked at the format. They've looked at the format. They've identified the Bestial Lubellion to be the problem. Just let them be, okay? The Bestial Lubellion was the issue in the OCG. Just trust, okay? The Malice in Underground is at 3 in the OCG, but the Bestial Lubellion needs to be at 1. You just don't understand, okay? You wouldn't get it. We need 1 Lubellion. We need 0 Fenrir. We can have triple Malice in Underground. Don't question it, okay? But yes, Lubellion is in fact at 1. Also, I think SP Little Knight, SP, dude, the limited section is a treat. SP Little Knight is limited. Also, Kapsi Yamiwe is limited, which is coming. This is one where the TCG's gotta be like, yo, you know, that's our fault. We did that. We did that, and now everyone in the world can see it that we put Kapsi Yamiwe to 1. Oh man. Okay, what else? Habakiri is limited. This is from the TCG side of things, and also I'm pretty sure Mitsurugi Prayers is limited from the OCG side of things. So Mitsurugi not looking too hot at the World Championships this year, even though it is currently still a good deck in the TCG. Actually even managed to qualify for the World Championships at the European Championship. The second place deck was Mitsurugi. But I think 1 Mitsurugi Prayers, 1 Habakiri is a pretty harsh restriction for the World Championship format. So I'm not sure how likely it is that we see a Mitsurugi deck popping up. But it's not impossible. We'll just have to wait and see if it actually happens. Okay. We have the classics over here. What else is there? Sun Avalon, Dryas, Sunvine Healer. Allure of Darkness is an OCG hit. Pretty sure we don't have that in the TCG. Crossout is legal in both formats, so it's legal here as well. Pre-Preparation of Rites is another OCG hit coming over, which is even hard. That's even more hits to Mitsurugi, I guess. I'm just trying to think, because like, what kind of decks are relatively left alone so far? I think Branded, Sky Striker, Ritual of Light and Darkness is looking pretty potent as well, because they obviously don't have any hits. Lunalight does not have any hits besides Baguska, I'm pretty sure. Elf Note is basically at TCG power level, right? Which is still pretty good, because it's basically the TCG doesn't have Baron, so they're used to not playing it, and the deck is still doing pretty well here. So I'm pretty sure you can just play Elf Note, and it's going to be completely fine. Blitzclick should have no hits either, and Fairy Tail also looks pretty good, or at least playable. Yeah, Talents at 1 thanks to the TCG, thank God. And then we have Anti-Spell, Gozen, Rivalry, Skill Drain. There can be only 1. I'm just looking at these banned cards, and I can't help but feel like one of these is a little bit out of place. I feel like there's a difference in how much I would like to play against these cards. I can't spot the one that I can't find the odd one out, but something between Anti-Spell Fragrance, Gozen Match, Naturia's Sacred Tree, Rivalry of Warlords, Skill Drain, Solemn Judgment, and There Can Be Only One. Something doesn't sit right with me. I can't really figure it out. I don't know. But I feel like one of these is not like the other. And then semi-limits. My biggest enemy is semi-limited in the OCG, so it's also semi-limited at Worlds, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that impacts the quality of games. As well as Dominance Impulse and Solemn Warning are also semi-limited. Now, Solemn Warning at 2 is just a please play Solemn Accusation type hit, so that doesn't really matter that much because there's infinite replacements. But there isn't that many replacements for Ash Blossom. Izuna is also semi-limited in case anyone was trying to do that. Arthalion, another masterpiece from the TCG division, is also semi-limited. Cool Tune Synchro, actually relevant semi-limit for Cool Tune. I mean, I think Cool Tune is still playable with these hits, personally. I think 2 Cool Tune Synchros and 1 Rotary still leaves the deck playable. The thing is, we actually looked at this yesterday. There was a Cool Tune in the top 8 for the Japan Championship, and it even managed, the player qualified for the World Championship as well because they ended up 5th place. The thing is, they have replaced the extra copies of Rotary with the Blue Eyes. I forgot its name. This is the Blue Eyes from the Rivals Overframe collection. This card is not legal at Worlds because it's not out in the TCG yet. Like Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon or Deep Eyes something is what it's called. I don't know its exact name. But it searches level 1 light tuners, I'm pretty sure. So it searches Rotary. And this card is not allowed. So you cannot replace the extra Rotaries with this card. However, I feel like if you take these 3 cards out of this exact deck list, you go down to 38 cards. If you just find like 2 other solid cards to put in there, maybe, this looks like a playable deck to me still. I feel like this is still a playable deck regardless, for the World Championship. No Harmonia. Yeah, there's been a couple of Cool Tune players, both in TCG and OCG, who have just basically embraced the nature of the hand trap deck, and you only want to put cards in there that actually stop your opponent from playing. And Harmonia does not stop your opponent from playing, so they are just playing all the negate hand traps at maximum. Like they're starting to add like Dominus cards to the deck because they like. And I think depending on the format, we've looked at the OCG format yesterday. I agree with it. Harmonia feels terrible into the Toon matchup, and the Toon deck in particular, it feels like you need to hand trap it to death. Otherwise, it just doesn't really work for you. And Harmonia just doesn't do a good job at that, right? So like the Toon decks are, the Cool Tune decks are also just trying to hand trap to death. And Harmonia does not do that. As Triff once said, Harmonia is palpation, not negation. Yeah, true. Okay, what else? Pot of Extravagance is technically at, I think it's at 3 in the TCG, but you can only play 2 at Worlds. Super Poly is at 2. Dominus Impulse is at 2. Solemn Warning. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a good ban list overall. There's a lot of changes on here that I would also want in the TCG, mainly called by ban, hits on Droll, hits on Ash. I think that's a lot of stuff to increase the quality of games. Of course, Droll still exists, Ash still exists. They're still going to show up. People are still going to play them. And a lot of the meta decks in the formats actually get away quite well this year. Like this format doesn't feel so different from our format at the European Championship, right? Like, I mean, we look at the decks that did well at Euros, like, okay, Cool Tune loses 2 Rotaries and a Cool Tune Synchro, but remains playable, and maybe people still decide to bring it. Branded is still playable. Sky Striker is still playable. Ritual of Light and Darkness is also still playable. Elf Note pretty much doesn't change at all because they didn't have Baron in the TCG to begin with. So there is a lot of decks that feel very similar for TCG players this year. And I think that is something that has been the case very often in recent years. It's actually, in my opinion, it's one of the reasons why the OCG has done not very well at recent World Championships. Actually, I don't know the exact numbers, but they haven't won since post-COVID. Basically, the last time the OCG has won the World Championship was in 2019, which was the last World Championship before COVID. Which is at this point 7 years ago. And I'm pretty sure they also didn't really put up great numbers just in terms of top cut, like, conversion. And I think one of the reasons is that in a lot of recent years, the Worlds format often felt a lot closer to the TCG format than the OCG format. And I think this year is a similar thing. If we think about the decks that are good for Worlds, a lot of those decks are currently meta in the TCG. We are just better. I don't think that's the reason, genuinely. I think OCG also has very, very good players. But the amount of practice that you have with those formats and how familiar you are with these formats is very important. Like, it cannot be overstated, even though it's just some individual cards. how much of a difference it can make to just be used of playing a format that just doesn't have Baron the Fleur and doesn't have Maxi and doesn't have this and doesn't have that. And so because the TCG ban list generally is a little bit more restrictive than the OCG ban list, it is, I think, usually an advantage for TCG players to when going into Worlds these days. As well as, I mean, we look at these tournaments, right? Essentially, let's pull them side by side. Hold up. European Championship 2026. European WCQ, right? If we pull these two tournaments up side by side, right? And we look at the kind of decks that people qualified for Worlds with, and we just think about how much they change going into the World Championship, right? We look at, okay, we have a couple people who played Cool Tune in the format, right? Cool Tune changes a little bit, but nothing too crazy. We have a second place with Mitsurugi, which is probably the deck that changes the most from this lineup of topping decks in the TCG. The Mitsurugi deck does change because you lose 2 prayers. That is a very sizable and a change that matters, right? But we have brandeds in here, which basically go into the World Championship unchanged. Like this list, literally, what is it? You cut 1 Super Poly, you cut 1 Droll and Lockbird, you lose the Called by the Grave. It is literally just a couple non-engine cards that change. The rest of the deck can stay exactly the same. We have Invoked, which we actually didn't talk about yet, but Invoked, I think, is also very, very playable. Also, Fenrir in the side deck here is banned. What a huge change. I wonder if Danilo can adjust to losing the 2 copies of Fenrir in the side deck. I don't know if he can deal with it, but I feel like he'll probably manage. He'll probably be okay. Oh yeah, Mixuzia. Mixuzia is played in Branded that they can't play, but I mean, Branded was played without Mixuzia for a long time. They'll be fine, right? We've got Elf Note. This Elf Note deck, besides the Ash Blossom and the Called by the Grave and the 1 Droll and Lockbird in the side deck, I think this Elf Note deck does not change at all. They can play, if they want to, Elf Note can be played the exact same way how it's in the TCG at the moment, right? It doesn't change. Light and Darkness Ritual decks that were also popular in the format, they don't change. You can play those just the way you want. And if we look over at the OCG format, this Toon deck that they've been playing for 2 months now, they can't play at all. The entire format changes because this deck isn't there anymore, right? This is the most dominant deck in the OCG right now that they just don't have to worry about anymore at the World Championship. So they basically have to do a mental reset of, like, they've been playing with this as the best deck for weeks and I think months now. And so they just have to go back to, like, oh, how does the format change if this deck isn't relevant anymore? Same thing for second place, some Tri-Brigade Toon variation. Then we've got another Toon deck. Then we've got Malice, which is a deck that basically doesn't exist at the World Championship because Whitebinder is banned, right? So this player also has to completely readjust to a completely different format. They cannot play the deck that they played to qualify, and the decks that they're playing against is also completely different. The Cool Tune player is probably the one that is the finest with all of this, because all they have to do is find a replacement for the Blue Eyes one if they want to adjust their own deck, right? But essentially, the Elf Note player as well. The Elf Note player cannot play the Synchro Emergency Trap. I mean, this Elf Note player didn't qualify, but just in terms of, like, how it's gonna feel to play against Elf Note at the World Championship, you have to adjust to, well, there's no Baron, there's no Synchro Emergency, the Synchrons are not in the deck anymore. So, like, their decks just more drastically change. Their environment just changes a lot more, right? Out of these top 32 decks, I would say probably about half or more are simply not playable at the World Championship. And so it's just going to be it's harder to adjust. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's obviously still possible that someone from the OCG finds a good deck that they're comfortable with and gets in enough practice and then ends up winning the World Championship. Absolutely. These are all phenomenal players, I'm sure, that have a chance at winning. But they have I think it's harder for them. I think it's harder because they are coming out of this format and the TCG players are coming out of this format, and this format is so much closer to what the World Championship format is going to be, right? We just talked about it. Branded still good, Cool Tune still good, Invoked still good, Elf Note still good, Light and Darkness Ritual still good. Like those are all the decks that they basically have to worry about. And a lot of these decks that they are used to playing against are not. You know, Witchcrafter, not a thing anymore. Toon, not a thing anymore. Tri-Brigades, Malice, not a thing anymore. Unchained, not a thing anymore. So much here that just doesn't matter, right? So it's basically, they just have, the European players just have a head start, pretty much. Or not just Europe, but TCG, right? Task is his real name? I think so, yeah. Why wouldn't it be? I don't think this was true last year, though. Most, if not all, TCG players hadn't played a Justice Hunters format tournament prior to Worlds, whereas it was the WCQs for the OCG. That's a fair point. I don't remember the exact timing last year, but yes, the World Championship was, I think, one of the first actual tournaments with Justice Hunters. That is a fair point, yeah. But I also think that the OCG, how did the OCG do at Worlds last year? I mean, they didn't win it, but they did have people in top 8 at least, I'm pretty sure. I know Shane was in top 8 from the OCG. Did they have more? Was it just Shane? They had one in top 8. Okay, interesting. I mean, there's probably other factors that go into it as well. I mean, it's also like the caliber of play is just really good overall, and I'm sure all the TCG players put in a hell of a lot of work last year to prepare for Justice Hunters format. TCG players compete more and against tougher opponents. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't know if that's... I cannot say that confidently because I'm not super familiar with how exactly they prep. This is not something I would feel comfortable saying. Like, I know that a lot of TCG players put in a lot of work, but I cannot confidently say that the OCG players don't do the same thing. We have more tournaments. We probably have more like larger scale tournaments. That is true. But like, the TCG players who went to Worlds last year couldn't really go to like any... I don't think there was any YCSs with Justice Hunters, but I do remember specifically that there were a bunch of regionals before Worlds where I saw a bunch of them play like Justice Hunters decks. Like, Justice Hunters did come out a decent bit before Worlds, so the TCG players were like playing regionals with those decks. I remember like watching like Julian play Justice Hunters decks at regionals and stuff like that. I do remember that. Isn't Cookie a former world champion? Yes, Cookie won the 2019 World Championship. Bro, Cookie beat me in Swiss in 2019 Worlds as well. He went... I vividly remember this. Bro went like... It was Salamangrate with like one Gazelle. It was one Gazelle... And I don't know what else was limited for Salamangrate, but he played like it was like activate Pot of Desires, and then proceeded to full combo me afterwards with every single one of still in rotation. Like one of Gazelle was there, one of Field Spell was there, one of Counter Trap was there. Yeah. Oh yeah, Circle was also limited. I think I don't remember exactly what it was like. I played Thunder Dragon. I played Thunder Dragon at 2019 Worlds. That was a heartbreaking world championship because I played my matchups were so hard. I played against Jesse in round 1. Then I played against Raphael Nevin in round 2. I beat them both. Then I lost round 3. Yeah, I lost round 3 to the one who won in the end. I won round 4 and then I lost round 5 and I got like, I think it was 10th place. Because this is also something they've changed. Now they play 7 rounds of Swiss at Worlds. Back in the day, it was 5. And 5 was a really awkward number for the World Championships because basically you were guaranteed in top 8 if you went 4-1. And if you went 3-2, it was like... 1 or 2 would make it out of the 3-2s based on tiebreakers, but a lot of them just wouldn't make it. So I went 3-2 at Worlds in 2019 and 2018, and I got like 10th and 11th based on tiebreakers. It was really rough. I wish we played 7 rounds back then already. Because now with 7 rounds, it's like if you go 6-1, you're guaranteed. If you go 5-2, you're also guaranteed. And 4-3 is the one where a couple can make it. But yeah. So in 2018 and 2019, I got like, I think 11th and then 10th, which was really heartbreaking. The G Pretender, thank you for the 28 months. Welcome back. It's a silly question, but at Worlds, do you have to supply your own deck for the TCG? You can't just say this is what you're playing and they give you the cards. No, you do have to bring your own cards. You do bring your own cards. But they give you opportunities to find the cards if you're missing something. Like for example, if the World Championship is in Japan, usually as part of the stuff that you do before the World Championship actually starts, they will bring you to like some card stores in Japan for people to pick up cards, because you can play the what's it called? You can play OCG cards at Worlds as well. Konami's cheap. I don't know if it has much to do with that. I feel like there would be some issues that could happen if they provide the cards, because then what do you do if someone has like an issue with a card in a deck check, right? Like what happens if they supply all the cards and then you deck check someone and like one of the cards is damaged, right? It's like it creates a weird dynamic where they can just say like, well, you gave me the card, and it just becomes awkward, right? So I think it's fair enough. I mean, look, for most people who qualify for Worlds, they play the game very actively. They're probably going to have the cards. Can you mix TCG and OCG cards? Yes, you can. I played at 2017 Worlds. I remember playing True Draco, and I thought it was really cool because for us in the TCG, basically all of the True Draco cards were high rarity cards. And I thought it was really cool that the OCG had almost all of them as like common, rare, and super rare. So when I was in Japan, the days before the World Championship, I went to some of the TCG stores there, and I bought like my entire Worlds deck. I bought it in like rare, and I thought that was cool. I still have those somewhere. I still have those cards somewhere laying around. I'd have to go and look for them. But yeah, OCG stores, of course. You know what I mean? But yeah, okay. That is the TCG World Championship. We're gonna talk about this more the closer the tournament gets. I feel like in preparation for the World Championship, or in anticipation of the World Championship watch party, I want to do like a little prediction stream where we predict like what decks are gonna be good, what player, who's gonna win, and so on and so forth. But I want to do that closer to the World Championship. The other thing I wanted to take a look at was Master Duel, and I've been told that there is actually a very meaningful change for the Master Duel World Championship, and I want to talk about what that could mean as well. So a lot of the things have stayed the same. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel World Championships will be a series of battles between teams of 3, nothing different here. There will be 12 teams fighting for the title of champion, the winning team from last year, plus 3 teams that earned their places through the Duelist Cup, 6 through the regional qualifiers, and 2 through season points. This is also, I think, the exact same way as it was last year. So nothing has changed in that way. And I think we're going to have the same kind of thing where we have 2 groups of 6 teams, and then they will do a round robin thing where you play 5 rounds essentially, where every team faces every other team in the group. And then the top 2 teams from each group will go into the top 4. So this is all the same. Where it changes is with the deck building rules. So let's go over this. General deck building guidelines. I mean, obviously, main deck 40 to 60 cards, extra deck 0 to 15 cards. Duelists must follow the Forbidden Unlimited list, effective as of August 6th. This is interesting because I believe, do we know, they haven't announced the ban list for August 6th yet. Did I miss that? I feel like that means they are going to announce a ban list soon that is going to be in effect August 6th, right? So I guess we are awaiting this in the next 1 or 2 weeks, that we are going to be able to know exactly what the format is going to be. I mean, this is not crazy news. They do publish a ban list in Master Duel like every month. So like it's nothing crazy, but now we know exactly when it's going to be in effect. And only cards available in Master Duel as of August 24th can be used. There can be at most 3 copies of each cards across all of each team's decks. This is basically explaining the shared card pool, where if you play 3 copies of one card in one of your decks, you cannot have it in another one of your decks across the 6 decks. You know, actually, did they say somewhere that every duelist has 2 decks? Not yet, right? But I assume that's still the same. First line of the decks tab. Ah, 2 decks in game. I skipped over that. Okay, I thought it was just the whatever. Okay, yeah. Create 2 decks in game. Yeah, okay, that's the same still. So if you put 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon in one of your decks, you can only include 1 copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon across your other decks. We are familiar with this. The thing that we're not familiar with yet is this down here. Each team can designate up to 5 shared cards. Shared cards obviously being cards that are excluded from this. So if you designate Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring as a shared card, you can put 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring in all of your decks. You don't have to like share it basically. Or you don't have to like, it's not in the shared card pool. And this in every single world championship so far has been limited to 3 cards. This was not 5, this was 3 at every world championship so far. And I guess this is a big change. This is a very, very big change. It opens up a lot of game just crashes. It's very annoying. Okay, everyone refresh. Yep, thank you for the 16 months. Welcome back to you as well. Okay, has everyone refreshed? 1 hour and 22 minutes is better than 5 minutes though. I mean, I guess, yeah. All right, we got a remix here to cheer us up, I guess. PMU Abyss, thank you for the 42 months as well. I really appreciate you. I don't know. I will look into the log files of OBS later to see what caused it and then see if I can fix it. Okay, anyways, where were we? I guess let me start over with the 5 shared cards, because otherwise I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was. I don't know when exactly it cut off, but yeah, we were talking about the 5 shared cards. We wait for the remix to finish, and then we'll continue that discussion. Okay, you get the music back on. Okay, so what I was about to say is, in order to understand how this is different from before, maybe let's think about what would have been a possible lineup with 3 shared cards, and then maybe let's talk about the differences for if now it's 5, right? Because realistically, what do you guys think would have been the 3 shared cards for most teams if it was only 3? I think, and I'm going out on a limb here, I think Fuwalos and Ash Blossom would have been essentially everyone's shared cards. And they still are going to be, right? I think they are still going to be. And it's funny because every year so far at the World Championship, it's been like that, where like 2 shared cards were basically guaranteed. At the first World Championship in 2023, it was Ash Blossom and Maxi that were shared for every team. And then the third one was the one where it differentiated. Some people played Called By as the 3rd shared card. Some people used Imperm. We used Triple Tactics Talents. There were a couple of cards that were a contender for the 3rd spot. In 2024, I'm pretty sure it was the same thing. I'm pretty sure it was Ash, Maxi, and then the 3rd one was, like, most people did Called By, I think, but some people did Imperm, I think, or Talents as well. And then last year at the World Championship, Maxi was already limited, I think. So not everyone picked Maxi, because using a limited card as your shared card is kind of inefficient, because you only get 1 copy per deck. Whereas if you put a card that's at 3 as a shared card, you have more, like, you get more mileage out of it. So for this current format, right, I think Ash Blossom and probably Fuwalos are going to be, I mean, I guess it depends on the format, because if it's mostly, I mean, what is the format for Master Duel right now? I mean, Fuba is pretty solid against Branded, but Sky Striker is also solid. Cool Tune is probably still okay. Elf Note, Yeah, Fuba is fine, I guess. I feel like with 5 shared cards, there's a higher likelihood people go for some of the more, I mean, not super niche, but some of the less essential non-engine cards, like something like a Super Poly, something like a Fallen and the Virtuous, something like a Radiant Typhoon Vision is stuff that comes to mind. So yeah. I think the reason why they went from 3 to 5 is I think they want to go away from this thing where every team has exactly the same shared cards. And I think I kind of like this change because in previous years, like I said, it felt a little bit forced. Like every team did the same shared cards anyways. You could almost always predict at least 2 out of the 3 shared cards that every single team would have. And I think with 5 shared cards, you actually create an environment where we probably will be seeing some different approaches. And different approaches to shared cards could also lead to different approaches in lineups, right? Because if people, for example, if people choose to pick something like Fallen and the Virtuous and Radiant Typhoon Vision as their shared cards, it could open up lineups where you see Sky Striker and Radiant Typhoon in the same lineup, which is something that otherwise is very hard to do. And therefore, if you allow people to have more shared cards, I think it does allow for some more deck diversity, because all of a sudden you could combine decks with other decks in a lineup that previously couldn't go together. And I think that's interesting. Striker, Radiant, and Branded all want FNV. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, if you only have 3 shared cards, can you really justify doing Fallen and the Virtuous? You could, but if you want to play Branded, Striker, and Radiant, you would also need to share Radiant Typhoon Vision, and that doesn't work in 3, right? It does not work in 3. The concern that I have is if people don't do this, and they don't share cards like Fallen and the Virtuous or Radiant Typhoon Vision, and instead everyone just shares the 5 best hand traps, right? Because now we can play like a bunch of different hand trap decks. We share Ash, Fuwa, Imperm, Max C maybe. I don't know if Max C is worth it as a limited card, but just as an example, and like Droll and Lockbird, right? And you just share those 5, and then you play the 3 or 6 best decks of the format, and you just do the same non-engine in all of them, whatever you think the best non-engine is, right? Which is potentially going to do the opposite of what I think what they want to do with this is I think they want to increase deck diversity at Worlds, right? I think they want to increase deck diversity by allowing more possible combinations with shared cards. But if this backfires and people just share non-engine, then what could happen is we could see even less diversity, because not only are people going to play the exact same decks, but they're going to play the exact same non-engine in all of those decks, right? Like people could share Ash Blossom, Fuwa, Dominus Impulse, Droll and Lockbird, and Imperm, and then just play those in like all of their decks, right? Which is something that could definitely happen. Absolutely could happen. So I guess we'll have to see that. I mean, last Worlds was awful for diversity. I mean, last Worlds from the 3 that I've been to in terms of the format has, to me, felt the worst by far. Because the lineups for basically every team were pretty much, I mean, everyone had to have Malice, because it was the best deck by far. Everyone had to have Ryzeal, and I think everyone did have Ryzeal, because it was the second best deck by far. And then the only diversity that happened was from the 3rd deck in every lineup, right? Because the way I look at personally, and I think that's as someone who's played at the World Championship 3 times now, this is not a 6-deck lineup. Like for the Master Duel World Championship, what you want to have is you want to have 3 really good decks. Because you're never forced to play your 2nd deck, you don't have to win with each deck or anything like that. Your main focus should be to have like the 3 best decks on the 3 players. And then the secondary decks are usually there to like counter specific matchups or cover a certain weakness that your other deck cannot beat. Like if you're, as an example, last year, if you have a deck that's solid but it's not good into Malice, then you can have a second deck that is okay into Malice. Like for example, my approach last year was I had Memento, and my second deck was, I mean, my second deck was cringe as hell, but my second deck was a stun deck that was targeted at Malice, because the idea was, and I think it was a good idea, but Malice was such a dominant force in the format last year that I wanted to flip a coin against it. I wanted to play a stun deck that just wins going first, loses going second, because that, in my opinion, was the best thing I could do with the cards that were available to me against Malice. I think a 50% win rate against Malice, which I did have in the tournament with that deck, by the way. I lost the coin flip once and I won the coin flip once. I had a 50% win rate against Malice with that deck. And it actually did scare some people from bringing Malice against me as well. Like there was, I think there was one instance where the Malice player from the other team didn't bring Malice against me because they were scared of that deck. I think that was good. I think even though the deck was incredibly cringe, I think a 50% win rate into Malice, if you look at the overall win rate from Malice last year, I think it was like 80%. I think the fact that my deck had a 50% win rate into it was pretty okay, you know? But yeah, that's the kind of thing you want to do with your second deck. If this was legal last year, people would have played 2 Malice, I think. Unironically, we were thinking about that last year. We couldn't quite make it work with just 3 shared cards, but with 5, we probably could have. Yes. But this is something that you could do. So last year, like all of the Malice cards were at 3. Like Malice was at an absurd power level. So what we thought about was like, okay, well, all the extra deck is 1-off anyway, so you don't need any shared cards there. So you share like the Field Spell and Dormouse and Ash Blossom or something. Can you make it work? Right? You just play 2. We tried to do 2 Malice decks, not 3. We tried to do 2 Malice deck where like one deck has 2 White Rabbit, the other one has 1. Then the other deck has 2 Field Spells, the other one has 1, and so on and so forth. Like that's what we tried to do that last year. And I think this is something that you could do with 5 shared cards. However, I don't know if it's going to happen this year, because in order for that to be worth it, that deck needs to be a lot better than other decks in the format, right? That would have to be it would have to be a deck that is by far the best deck. Because you do make the deck weaker by doing this, right? Like you can't share every card in a deck, right? And I think right now there isn't really a deck that this is worth it for, right? Which is Cool Tune. Not in Master Duel anymore, right? In Master Duel, with 1 Rotary, I don't think it's worth it to share Cool Tune as a, like, you have like 2 or 3 Cool Tune decks in the. I think Cool Tune is a good deck, and I think Cool Tune is going to be on most players' lineups. But Cool Tune also needs non-engine, right? Is the thing. Like Cool Tune is a very, very non-engine heavy deck. So even if you manage to share a couple of Cool Tune cards, you just won't have enough non-engine. So I don't think that's gonna work. I don't think that's going to work. But it is interesting, and similar to what I said about the TCG earlier, we are also going to have a stream or a discussion on stream closer to the World Championship, where we try to predict what kind of decks are viable, what kind of teams are going to win, what kind of shared cards people are going to pick. I think it's a very, very interesting thing to look at, and we are going to do that. However, I do want to wait until we have information on what this Forbidden and Limited list changes for the World Championship, as well as I think there's going to be another pack, right? There is going to be another pack released at some point in August, because they usually have one every month, right? So there should be some new cards added at some point, and I guess it's gonna be interesting. What could they add? What could they add that would make a huge impact on the format, I guess, is the question, right? Like, are they going to add something that just doesn't matter as much, or are they going to add something massive? Power Patron? Power Patron would be very, very impactful. I mean, the thing is, like, if Power Patron enters the format, I think that's going to also force people to share Fuwa. Dominus Spark is a very interesting point. Yes, Dominus Spark could have a huge impact. Forbidden Crown could have huge impact. I guess if they decide to release the Ritual of Light and Darkness already, that would have huge impact. Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.